Is there a massive ice wall that we're all trapped in? Many people believe the reason you can't travel to the Antarctic because there's a military guarded ice wall over 1,000 foot high. There was an Antarctic treaty that was created in 1959 and over 56 countries had signed it, recognizing that it is in the interest of all mankind that Antarctica shall continue forever to be used exclusively for peaceful purposes and shall not become the scene or object of international discord. The treaty has been recognized as one of the most successful international agreements ever, and apparently all that's in Antarctica right now are labs where scientific experiments are being carried out. The only way you can visit Antarctica is by a private cruise, and you are not allowed to go off on your own anywhere. And there's even been images of what look like pyramids, really.
Okay, folks, I've been to CERN. CERN is very, very weird. I was actually there a couple of years ago when Russ Dizdar was still alive, well before COVID. So we're there at CERN, and we're being taken by a docent who's like basically just parroting what he's been told to say. So we're in this place where the statue of Shiva is the Indian god of death, basically the destroyer. And I look at the docent and I go, what's this doing here? He has no answer for it at all. Basically, here's the bottom line, and this is something that we need to really delve into here. CERN is built on the site of the ancient temple of Apollyon. Tom Horn, who passed away last year, very untimely, wrote about this. So CERN is at this ancient temple. They're going to open up and start using CERN and testing it the day of the eclipse. I mean, what are we looking at here? Is that deliberate? In my opinion, it's absolutely deliberate. Something is going on. Here's what I think is going on. The powers that be, are opening up CERN in coordination with the eclipse to open up a gateway, a portal. And that's what I think these sites really are all about. Now, when you go to the Serpent Mound in Ohio, it doesn't look anything like CERN, but it's ancient. And it's just in Ohio. And it's the longest serpent effigy on the planet. Now, some people will dispute that, that's fine. But it's the one that I go to. And that Serpent Mound the serpent is undulating, and the serpent's mouth is open like this. Guess what? The whole thing is built on the solstices, the equinoxes. They're big into this. And these sites are charged. The site at CERN is charged. The Serpent Mound in Ohio is a charged site.
Whatever goes on in CERN stays at CERN.
What if I told you that all corporations are actually just one giant mega corporation? And I'm not talking about metaphorically. And I'm not talking about BlackRock. I'm talking about what's really behind BlackRock. See, we hit 1 million followers on TikTok this week, and I've been waiting to post this video since the very first video that I made, laying the groundwork of understanding so that we're all gonna understand this now that we're here. So let's break it down real simple. If you're gonna go grocery shopping at a corporate grocery store, all of these corporations are owned by these institutions. They're highlighted in red if they're on all 4 of these sheets. They're darker orange if they're on 3 of them, and light orange if they're on 2. And there's only a couple that only appear once. It's mostly the same money. But we go deeper. If you go for the biggest tech companies, it's basically the exact same list for all 4 of these. That would be Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, Geode, which is similar to Fidelity Associated, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. And then Northern Trust is on 3 of them, and Capital World Investors is the exact same thing as Capital Research and Management Company. So you might think, okay, these are the institutions that own the whole stock market. But who owns them? And see, if you've been around here for a minute, you already know. They all own each other. Just a giant cross-ownership pool. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because see, way back before I'd even posted a single video, I was sitting in my office reading this report from an anonymous user on Reddit. And he had noticed the exact same thing that I'm talking about right now. And he wrote a program to put all that data into a visualization so we can see who owns who. And I'm about to show you what he figured out. Let's take BlackRock, for example. This is a list of the top institutional owners of BlackRock and how much of the company they own. And if you visualize it, it looks like this, where the whole square is all of BlackRock's stock, and they get a percentage of that square based on how much they own. And the important colors to note are that white symbolizes us, retail investors, and gray symbolizes insiders that work at the company. So that would be like Larry Fink's stock, among other people. And everything else is other giant corporations, investment banks. Like BlackRock themselves own a little bit. State Street owns some. Capital World Management owns some. Bank of America owns some. You see how this works? But then you think about it and you're like, well, wait a minute, because all of these institutions are owned by other institutions, right? So what if we put that data in here? Well, he did. And it looks like this. And you realize that all of this that was owned by Merrill Lynch is actually owned by all of these other institutions and a little bit of us, retail, up there at the top. But here, we've only replaced Merrill Lynch's section. What about all of these guys? Well, then it looks like this. Remember, white is retail investors like you and me, and everything else is giant mega corporations. And if you go one layer deeper, filling in all those corporations with their corporations, you see how this program's working? And so then we simplify it to just black, gray, and white. And this is who owns BlackRock. White is retail investors like you and me. Gray is insiders at all of these corporations like CEOs and other executives. And black is just corporations owning each other. We'll call it Megacorp. This is the same process done for Bank of America and for State Street and for Best Buy, Amazon, Macy's. Groceries, food, ingredients, building and selling homes, even less white, meaning us, retail ownership. As far as I can tell, there's only one company on the entire stock market that is not owned by Megacorp. Can you guess who it is? Do you know? It's GameStop. Except that this photo's out of date because it's from a few years ago. It probably looks more like this if you believe the public info, which is a big if. But more on that another time. This is not a video about GameStop. This is about Megacorp. Because see, when all of the owners own each other, all of their interests are aligned. BlackRock wants State Street to do well because State Street wants BlackRock to do well because they both own each other. So who is the real final boss behind all the money? Well, isn't that the million-dollar question? And ever since I've been asking those more important questions, my follower growth went from this to this. So you're not going to find those answers on this channel. You're going to have to go follow me in other places. All I'll say for now is that the next time you buy a product from a corporation like Nike or Costco or Best Buy or Amazon or any of these corporations, you're buying it from the mega corporation. They're all owned by the same big money. And it's all one big siphon, just vacuuming money out of our pockets up to the people on top.
I mean, we need more of such content. But the one thing that really surprised me is we, the retailers or the consumers, are just a tiny piece in this whole system.
If you look at Google Sky right now on the computer and look down on Antarctica, you'll find research bases from every major country in the world there. And you'll also find the Rockefeller Foundation base as well. Admiral Byrd was right. All the technology and research is the #1 place in the world for technology research is right down there in Antarctica. I believe that as the ice is melting, they're finding remnants of an ancient civilization. We know that Antarctica was not a frozen tundra for 12 million years like mainstream science says 12 million years to build up all this ice. No, that's not accurate. We know this because of the Perry-Reese map. The Perry-Reese map shows Antarctica what it looked like without ice on it, and that's not even that old. So we know that Antarctica shifted into that spot. How? Because we know that Antarctica is surrounded by tectonic plates. There was something called a pole shift of the crust of the Earth, which shifted it from a more habitable climate into the position it is now, and that's why the animals that are being uncovered from the ice were flash frozen with undigested food in their stomachs. And there's an entire advanced civilization there, including some of the largest pyramids on Earth, right in Antarctica.
Well, I might be wrong, but I'm definitely convinced that there is something going on in Antarctica. I'm not sure what it is, but something is definitely going on there.
People, these Anunnaki people, they own planets, they own moons and everything. There's a constellation called the Boötes constellation. And in this constellation, there's the largest void that we know of. A void meaning not even space dust is in this area. It goes on for light years. I go, how in the world can there be nothing in this space?
There's like dark matter or
just nothing.
not even dark matter.
Michio Kaku hypothesized that it might be an advanced cloaked civilization. I said, what? So now I start digging deeper. I go, wait a minute. I look into ancient texts. Now I'm like, this got to be something here. I said, who owns the Boötes? And it says Enlil. These people, these Anunnaki people, they own planets. They own moons and everything. He owns the constellation. And so, or maybe he rules over it in some weird way. Enlil had something called an all-seeing eye, where he knew everything going on the planet at one time. And I'm saying that only way you can do it was with a polar orbiting satellite. That's the only way you can actually do that. would they have possibly dropped a probe in orbit to watch us and monitor us and transmit back to them what's going on here since they left?
So, can you explain what this is and what the mainstream theory of what this thing is?
So the Black Knight satellite is this object that is actually orbiting the Earth right now. And so this is an object that they estimated one time on NASA at 15 tons.
Really?
So nobody wants to touch this thing. They don't want to say what it is, but it's been there for a long time. How do we know this? First of all, Nikola Tesla claims to have received a signal from this object. It all started to make sense to me, so it became a big hypothesis.
Some of Hollywood's greatest conspiracy theories. Are these cap or fact? We may never know. Rumor has it Stevie Wonder may not be blind. If he was, how could he perfectly operate this camera? Sources say O.J. Simpson could be Khloe Kardashian's father. The chemistry here is off the charts. And if Tupac died, why was his photo taken one day after his alleged murder? Is Nicolas Cage really just a Civil War era vampire? Most likely. Is Jay-Z just a time traveler from the Harlem Renaissance? Most likely, yes. And did Gucci Mane really go from running the trap to running track? Or was he cloned in a Georgia jail cell? Who knows?
Vampires, werewolves, time travelers. That is absolutely bonkers.
Leading IVF clinic outside of New York. Behind those walls, there are people with the technology, the ability and the desire to genetically engineer human embryos, to be the first in the world to successfully clone a human being.
There's no doubt that human beings will be cloned.
So if I had the money, you had the permission, you could clone me tomorrow.
Well, I wouldn't say tomorrow. It will take a year or two. We could clone you probably within 2 years.
The possibility of cloning has been around for decades. Then, in February of this year, came the living proof it could be done. A lamb called Dolly was cloned in Scotland from the breast tissue of an adult sheep. Little Dolly and many other species of animals cloned since, including monkeys, are powerful evidence that we humans can replicate ourselves. It's a bit like taking a cutting from a plant in the garden.
Okay, I don't know how much truth there is to this thing, but if we achieve this milestone, the world as we know will totally shift.
The craziest coincidences in history. In 1940, two men were born as identical twins. However, they were separated at birth and adopted by two separate families. Both men were named Jim by their separate families, Jim Lewis and Jim Springer. Both men grew up to be adults, had a son, and both named their son James. Both men had dogs named Toy. Both men were married twice. The first time they both married women named Linda, and the second time they both married women named Betty. Both men had similar jobs in security. Jim Lewis was a security guard and Jim Springer was a deputy sheriff. In 1972, the two twins were reunited, having lived separate lives without knowledge of each other's existence. The incredible similarities in their lives forced scientists to go into studies about the effects of nature versus nurture.
That is the mother of all coincidences. Plot twist upon plot twist upon plot twist.
You ready for a conspiracy theory?
Not really.
Yes, I so am.
So Walt Disney died in 1966, right? And since then, there's been a lot of rumors that they actually froze Walt Disney, so that in the future they could unfreeze him and then use his very creative mind and body and you know, get back on track.
He brought us some great things.
It's an amazing thing. Walt Disney, mate. Disney, huge. So the conspiracy theory is right. Some people actually reckon the only reason that they created Frozen, as in Disney Frozen, Elsa, is so that when you Google Disney Frozen, it comes up with the movie and it doesn't come up with all the theories about them freezing Walt Disney.
But he's cryogenically frozen.
Yeah. What do we think?
Smart move, Walt.
Maybe they were getting heaps of calls at Disney and they're like, for God's sake, he's not frozen. And they're like, just make a movie, I don't care.
Maybe on his deathbed. Listen, if anyone kicks up over this, I've done a rough draft of this thing.
Here's the script.
And I want the song to be really painful and it just gets played repeatedly.
Yeah, right. You just made $1 million movie to cover up a crazy conspiracy theory. Sounds about right.
How did the idea of a dragon be prominent everywhere around the world, but there's no proof of a real one?
There's no proof of real one.
This is my theory on it, is that dragons did exist and they were dinosaurs. But what happened was, there's like a study on this too, the wings of birds don't decompose or don't stay intact like the rest of the other bones. So let's say a T-Rex was actually a dragon. and it had wings.
Oh, but like you couldn't find it out because the wings
would have decomposed and not stayed intact with the rest.
Oh, that's
so
so
it would be
true.
lost forever. And this is even true in science. Like when they do put these bones together, they try and make something of it, but it's all theory, right? Like they're not sure exactly what it is or exactly how the skin fell on it.
Yeah, because most time like don't even have all the bones. Like they only have like 50% of them.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll like have to guess how it looks like.
They have to guess how it looks like. For a long time, we didn't even know they had feathers, bro.
Yeah.
For a long time, we didn't know that.
We even know that they had hair and shit.
Exactly. Elon Musk thinks it's a 50% chance we're in a simulation or not. And if it ever comes to the point where we can create a simulation, it will prove that we are in one already. So if we can create a simulation, we may already be in one. And if we are already in one, there could be multiple. There could be hundreds. There could be thousands, billions. And we don't know what is true base reality anymore.
I mean, metaphorically speaking, we live in a simulation.
Okay, so let's talk about the supposed vampires that live in New Orleans. Locals believe that the city is actually home to real living vampires. During the 1930s, brothers John and Wayne Carter were executed for committing multiple murders. About a dozen bodies were found drained of their blood after a young woman managed to escape the brothers' apartment. Sightings of these brothers are reported up until this very day because their bodies mysteriously vanished from the funeral vault. Why am I thinking of Stefan and Damon right now? Now fast forward to 1984. Where 9 people were found around the French Quarter area, all with their throats ripped out. Paramedics and first responders were dumbfounded because even though the scene was gory, there was no blood. Also, vampire culture is majorly popular in New Orleans, but that must have stemmed from somewhere. The missing persons and crime rate is incredibly high around the French Quarter area. What if this is something more?
There's a theory that the Mona Lisa isn't actually a painting of a woman, it's a painting of a man.
Oh, I've heard that.
You heard
like
of that?
If you look too long or something.
No, listen. So it's a painting of Leonardo da Vinci's friend and supposed lover.
But he kept it a secret.
He kept
at
it
the
a
time,
secret. Yeah. So they did like infrared.
Whoa.
Yeah, they did like infrared scans of Leonardo's work painting his friend Salai. Right?
Okay.
That's his friend, supposedly.
So they look like twins, basically, but one's a girl, one's a boy.
Salai would always dress as a woman, like for fun.
For fun.
For fun, he would dress as a woman. So supposedly, those paintings of Salai before, they look very similar to the Mona Lisa. I'll put it up both.
I would say, like, as someone who likes to do art, that's definitely a believable theory.
Right.
This was definitely eerie to say the least. In 1988, a man claiming to be Jesus Christ seemingly appeared out of thin air in Kenya, where he predicted the future, performed miracles, and healed the sick. The same person would arrive 20 years later, this time as a being of complete light swinging a sword. I'm not a religious person, but this is definitely weird. It definitely lines up with prophecy. Check this shit out.
Maitreya made an appearance June 11th, 1988, to a local congregation in Nairobi, Kenya. The editor of the Swahili edition of the Kenya Times, a veteran journalist named Job Matungi, witnessed the event and took some pictures. A summary of his article, as it appeared in his newspaper, is as follows, quote, "The tall figure of a barefooted, white-robed, and bearded man appeared from nowhere and stood in the middle of the crowd. He was walking slowly towards the new church building, away from the tent. Mary walked with him side by side. I stared at the stranger without blinking, wafted on top of his turbaned head, his feet, and his entire body. In clear Swahili, which had no traces of accent, the strange man announced that the people of Kenya were blessed, especially those who had gathered at the venue that afternoon. We are nearing the time of the reign of heaven, but before that I shall come back and bring a bucket full of blessings for all of you," the man said. A bucket full of blessings is a reference to the astrological symbol for the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is depicted as a man carrying a pitcher of water in the zodiac. It took the crowd nearly 20 minutes to recover after the man left the meeting in a car belonging to a Mr. Gurnam Singh, who offered to give him a lift. But it will probably take Mr. Singh his lifetime to recover from the shock he got 2 minutes later. On reaching the bus terminus, the man informed Mr. Singh to stop the car. On getting out, he walked a few paces beside the road and simply vanished into thin air. International and Benjamin Krem have put out that this is indeed an appearance of Maitreya, the supposed world teacher for the Age of Aquarius, One World Government. Commenting on this video, Share International reports, quote, Imam Mahdi, unexpected appearance, proclaims the title of a video posted on YouTube. A miraculous figure of glowing brilliant white light appeared on a video filmed in Karbala, Iraq, on the night of Ashura, 6 January 2008. This Shia Muslim ceremony commemorates the martyrdom of the grandson of the Prophet, Hussein, whose tomb is in Karbala. Benjamin Krem's master confirms that the light figure is Maitreya, Imam Mahdi to the Muslims, and that his dance-like movements with a sword remind us of his coming.
I mean, it's just a conspiracy and rumors, because the prophecy, it'll take time. It won't just appear out of thin air.
Billie Eilish has some of the most prominent Sanpaku eyes I've ever seen, which means the whites are under her iris for her eyes, which can point to tragedy, and especially a tragedy regarding being unalived. Famous examples, Aaliyah, Michael Jackson, Princess Diana. So I want to look at her birth chart and see her transits and see exactly like what are some time periods she should watch out for. Here's her chart. Okay, so she is a 10th house south node, meaning this is not her first shenanigan being famous. I made a video, I think she's Karen Carpenter reincarnated, that's just me, but nonetheless, she has been here on this planet a star before, which means in this lifetime, she is not meant to be famous. She already had a famous life. She has a 4th house north node and Jupiter and Cancer in the 4th, meaning her biggest life mission is going to be starting a family. She has about 5 years to defame before something scary can happen. And that's because in about 5 years, Pluto in Aquarius will be wedged between her moon and Neptune conjunction in Aquarius in the 12th house. This is an energy you do not want to mess with. If she were to go out, it would be something similar to Aaliyah. And that's because she has a critical degree, Uranus in the 12th, which is associated with freak accidents. Her 8th house ruler is her Venus in Sag conjunct Pluto in the 9th house, which is showing possible way of being deceased is from traveling. Billie is not here to be a star, and if she forces herself to try to be a star, it will not end pretty for her.
She's not meant to be famous, but yet she is famous. So that basically contradicts everything you just said.